Medals are a unique feature to the sequels of Pokemon Black and White. There are 255 of them to fill your medal box with, and some will easily be obtained throughout your journey, while others require you to withstand tedious and grueling tasks. During a typical playthrough of Pokemon Black and White 2, you probably collect a decent bit of these medals without even trying. But what if you went out of your way to collect the fewest amount of medals before becoming the champion? Do you even have to receive one? Well, those are the questions that I'll be answering in today's video. Now, in order to simplify things, I've split the medals up into 3 categories. First, we've got the ones that are unfortunately guaranteed to happen. You've got stuff like participating in the medal rally, winning the Driftvale tournament, and releasing the Bryson Man movie. Then there's some that I'm not sure if we'll get, but I'm putting them here just in case. This includes being involved in 100 battles and using strength in the overworld several times. I'm not sure how many battles you usually take part in during a regular playthrough, so in order to be safe, I'll try to skip some trainers here and there. Similarly, I know you're forced to use strength outside of battle at least a couple of times throughout the region, but I'm just not sure how many is classified as several. Lastly, we've got the walking medals. You get one for taking 5,000, 10,000, 20,000, and 100,000 steps in the game. If I had to guess, the 5,000, 10,000, and maybe even 20,000 are almost impossible to avoid, but hopefully I can refrain from taking 100,000 steps. The next category consists of medals that I need to do my best to not receive. Some of these are easy to avoid, like reading 5 trainer tip signs, riding the bike, catching a Pokemon with a fishing rod, storing 30 Pokemon in the PC, and using Fly several times. However, there's others that are a little tricky, such as not being able to save more than 9 times, meaning save states will be my best friend. Then you've got not being able to return to a Pokemart. From my interpretation, this means that I can't make more than one trip to the same mart, so I'll have to stock up on items all at once. Speaking of which, I can't buy more than 10 Pokeballs at a time thanks to the Smart Shopper medal, and I can't run into shaking grass or swirling dust due to the Superb Locator medal. It doesn't end there though, as these next 3 medals really make things difficult, as I won't be able to use too many super effective moves, heal at Pokemon centers more than 9 times, or even evolve a Pokemon. Yeah, this challenge just ramped up in difficulty. Oh, and there's also 2 more in this category that would just be straight up unlucky to get, which is owning a Pokemon with Pokerus and seeing a Wailord in the Marine Tube. As for the final category, you can basically disregard it because it's all the medals that you really have to go out of your way for, like participating in musicals or adding to the Join Avenue. By the way, I will be giving myself some rare candies to use, because come on, battles will already be challenging, and due to me not being able to heal at a Pokemon Center too often, training in the wild is basically off limits, especially since I can't battle wild Aldinos. Anyways, with that long introduction out of the way, make sure to hit that sub button as it really helps out the channel. And without further ado, it's time to find out what the fewest amount of medals is that you have to collect in Pokemon Black and White 2. For my starter, I went with Tepig because apparently it matches up the best against the gyms, but once again, I can't evolve it, so it's not like Tepig will be here for the whole game anyways. After chipping away at our rival's Oshawott, Bianca showed us around the Pokemon Center, and made me use my first heal at a Pokemon Center when I didn't even need it. Thanks a lot, Bianca. I easily worked my way up to the Flockacy Ranch in order to catch a Lillipup and Mareep. I figure these 3 Pokemon will hopefully be able to carry us through the early portion of the game, or at least until I get access to some better mons. The rival's Oshawott didn't stand a chance, and it was after this fight that I realized the challenge of not being able to heal at a Pokemon Center more than 9 times won't be as difficult as I first thought. This is because there are plenty of people throughout Unova, like this breeder for instance, who freely heal your Pokemon. Sure, it may be tedious to have to run back to various routes just to heal, but as long as we don't get that medal, then it'll be worth it. Also, as I was training up my team, I realized that if wild battles count towards the medal that involves participating in 100 battles, or any of those other medals, then unfortunately I'm guaranteed to get them, because I don't want to be cheap and spam rare candies at every single point in the game, so I gotta fight wild Pokemon here and there. Upon leaving Alder's training house, we met our worst enemy, the Metal Master. Man, do I hate this guy. Not only did he hand us the Metal Box, but he gave us our first unavoidable, ugly, and disgusting medal. Gosh, I never want to see his face again. Oh, and by the way, the hint medals don't actually count as real medals. On the bright side, I didn't struggle nearly as much as I thought I would against Charon, so that's nice. Inside the Verbank complex, I decided to add a Magnemite to my team, as it's probably the only way I have a chance against Roxy. Speaking of which, because the breeder back in the ranch doesn't heal your Pokemon anymore once you rescue the Herdier, I went into the gym battle a little beaten up. And if you couple that with the fact that my team was still around the level 12 and 13, we got taken out. Coughing wasn't the problem, and I did manage to paralyze Whirlipede, but Venoshock just did too much damage. Because of this, I had to use my second heal at a Pokemon Center, which is okay because I'm almost positive that there's a nurse or doctor in the Castelia sewers. After feeding some rare candies to my Pokemon though, our next attempt was a breeze. While in the Pokestar Studios, I did my best to try and see if there was a way to leave before releasing the Bryson Man film, or maybe shoot the film without releasing it. But no, they make you release the Bryson Man movie, resulting in another nasty and terrible medal. Moving on to Castelia City, I entered the Pokemon Center to see him. Again. Yeah, I've already taken 5,000 steps, and we're not even at the third gym yet, so I can only assume that the Light Walker, Middle Walker, Heavy Walker, and maybe even Honored Footprints medals are all guaranteed to unlock at some point. Team Plasma wasn't much of a threat down in the sewers, and I was correct in there being a doctor to heal up with, so that's good to know. However, right after this is when I made two detrimental discoveries. First of all, it looks like wild battles do count towards those battling medals that I talked about earlier, so I've already received the Battle Learner medal, and I'm sure I'll get the rest of them later. Additionally, there's two more medals titled Moderate Customer and Great Customer, which involve you spending a total of 10,000 and 100,000 Pokédollars across all the Pokémarts. When I first saw those medals, I thought they just meant you couldn't spend more than those amounts in one shopping trip, but no, that's not the case, so you can go ahead and add two more to the count. At least I was able to defeat Berg with my underleveled team, albeit only one Pokemon survived. With 3 badges in my pocket, we easily handled Colress before finally adding some real power to the team. I made sure to catch the Mandibuzz on Route 4, a Maractus and Sigilif in the Desert Resort, and a Liepard on Route 16. These types of Pokemon that don't evolve, or really any fully evolved wild Pokemon for that matter, are going to be my targets for the team, since obviously I can't evolve Pokemon myself. Oh, and I did pick up the Middle Walker medal during this time. Yeah, this one just smelled really bad. But then it was time for one of my least favorite gym leaders, Elisa, as she loves to spam a Volt Switch the entire fight. Luckily, I had Maractus who resists electric types, and even Mandibuzz took down Zebstrika, so this one wasn't all that bad. From there, it was right on to Clay, who was definitely the hardest gym leader up to this point. I sacked off Magnemite against Krokorok in order to let Mandibuzz take him down. For Excadrill, I just went through the rotation of Tepig, Maractus, and Liepard, who eventually got the job done. Last out was Sandslash, who couldn't withstand 2 Psybeams from Sigilif. On my way to the PWT, I stopped by the Relic Passage to catch a Girder. Although I can't evolve it into Conkeldurr, I think Girder can still put in some work. As for the Driftville tournament, it was a piece of cake because, for some reason, all of the opponent's Pokemon are only at level 25. I actually tried to purposely lose and see if I could still progress, but I couldn't, so that sucks, as we were forced to receive another gross medal. Up by Mistralton City, I snagged a Zebstrika and Zangoose to replace Magnemite and Liepard respectively. I think my final squad is starting to come together, as I like the type diversity, and most of these mons either don't evolve or are already fully evolved. Also, I have to stop nicknaming my Pokemon now, since naming 10 or more gets you another medal. After doing all that, I was handed the Battle Teacher medal, which as I said earlier, looks to be an unavoidable one. It was then time for Skyla, who Swoobat only hung on against Mandibuzz thanks to a Hyper Potion, before Sigilif knocked it out. He couldn't get the job done against Swanna though, so Zangoose came in for the kill. Last up was Skarmory, who got whittled down by Zebstrika and finished off by Girder. The rival battle in Undella Town wasn't anywhere close to being difficult, and afterwards I decided to use my third heal at a Pokemon Center just because the gap between the house on Route 7 and the spot in the village bridge is so long. While taking on Drayden, I think I found a pretty awesome strat with Mandibuzz. Thanks to our weak armor ability, Druddigon kept boosting my speed while I used Nasty Plot twice. Combine that with Dark Pulse and Air Slash, and Mandibuzz nearly swept Drayden's team. Haxorus barely survived and took us out, but Zangoose avenged him for the victory. You know, I was thinking about dropping Mandibuzz for a water type, but I may just end up sticking with the 6 Pokemon I have now. After taking down Zinzalin's puny ice types and trekking through the marine tube, without seeing a Wailord by the way, I realized that none of my Pokemon could learn Surf, which I'll need very soon in the game, so I had to backtrack all the way to the Driftvale drawbridge just to catch a Ducklet. Along the way, I also hit the 100,000 Pokédollar benchmark, resulting in another putrid medal. Nonetheless, I was able to obtain the 8th badge with ease, thanks to having Swords Dance on Zangoose. The battle with Colress on the Plasma Frigate took many tries because I couldn't use super effective moves, and almost every one of my other moves was not very effective against his steel types. Magnezone decided to explode, which was probably the best case scenario, while Zebstrika handled Metang, Klinklang, and Behem. Magneton then nearly ran through my entire team thanks to some awful paralysis luck, but Mandibuzz landed a few Dark Pulses to finish the job. Big Bad Getsis wasn't bad at all, as I set up by using Swords Dance with Zangoose and literally swept his entire team. Look, you can say what you want about that strategy, but when I can't use super effective attacks, you gotta cut me a little slack. The rival fight at the end of Victory Road was much tougher due to Simisage giving me trouble out of all Pokemon. However, it wasn't long until Sigilyph was knocking out Bouffalant, and we were heading into the Pokemon League. I went ahead and used my 5th and final heal at a Pokemon Center, and here's a look at the squad. Everyone's around level 60, but I'm still not confident that I can beat the Elite Four because, again, I can't use super effective moves, so I'm not going to be hitting any of our opponents very hard. But maybe I stand corrected because I went after Grimsley first, who lost his first 3 team members to the combination of Swords Dance and Strength on Zangoose. Bisharp eventually took him out, but one Thunderbolt from Zebstrika was enough to win us the battle. Caitlin's Musharna got off a Yawn on Zangoose, which allowed Reuniclus to take us out with a Focus Blast. So Zebstrika had to come in for the cleanup, while Mandibuzz dealt with Sigilyph, and Zebstrika once again finished off the fight. Chantal was way easier than I thought she'd be, as I set up with a few nasty plots on Mandibuzz, and swept her entire team with Air Slash. However, Marshall gave us the most problems. Throh managed to knock out Girder, before being killed by Zangoose. Conkeldurr took out Maractus, and Zebstrika barely hung on to win that duel, while also obliterating Mienshao, but dying to recoil in the process. Next up was Sawk, who I tried to counter by setting up a Reflect, but he had Brick Break, so that was basically ineffective. As a result, the rest of my team got wiped out. On the very next try though, I managed to keep Maractus alive until the end, so one Petal Dance was enough to defeat Sawk. That means that only Iris stood in our way of becoming the champion, and she was kind of underwhelming. Zangoose did what he does against Hydreigon and Druddigon, before Maractus landed a crit on Aggron and broke through confusion to take out Lapras. Haxorus cleared Mandibuzz and Zangoose before dying to Sigilyph. Last out was Archeops, and I decided to take a risk by using Thunderbolt with Zebstrika, because if you remember, the medal said to use several super effective moves, and I've hardly used any throughout this playthrough. So the only thing left to do after becoming the champion was to boot up the game again, and make sure that I didn't receive any more medals. And although the Medal Master was in the Pokemon Center, he only handed us some hint medals, meaning we have beaten Pokemon Black and White 2, while only collecting 10 medals, which is the fewest amount of medals you can receive. At least I think. I was kind of surprised that I never received the Honored Footprints medal for taking 100,000 steps, or the Battle Veteran medal for participating in 400 battles. However, I'm sure there may be a way to avoid participating in 200 battles, or maybe even 100 battles. You also might be able to refrain from spending a total of 100,000 Pokédollars, so yeah, there's a possibility that the fewest amount of medals you have to get in these games is only 7. Nonetheless, I had a lot of fun playing through these games again, as having to avoid things that you normally do in a Pokemon game made for a somewhat difficult adventure. For now though, I hope you guys enjoyed, have a great rest of your day, and until next time, deuces!